What's going on, everybody? It's Daniel from CoinSpots here, and looks like we've got a nice little rebound, little bounce going on in the market today. So yeah, we're going to be taking a look at Bitcoin and kind of the market in general. See what's going on with it. Is this the bottom? Are we at the low? And then we're going to take a brief look at the stock market again. And then lastly, in terms of the news, we're going to be taking a look at the virtual currency Senate hearing that happened yesterday. That's the biggest news that's going on now. All of the headlines are from the SEC um, and the CFTC chairman at the meeting. Pretty much everything on Cointelegraph and stuff like that is just all related to it. So not really any other news, any other big news at least, that has come out today yet at the recording of this video. So to the charts. We're on the 1 day on Bitfinex. I switched over to Bitfinex for the kind of a long-term analysis and trend analysis, just because Bitfinex is the biggest exchange in the world, and I've seen a lot of traders using it as kind of their long-term trend analysis chart. That's the exchange that they go to. For more entry points and some type of trading, I'll use Coinbase. But for the long-term analysis, I think I'm gonna stick to Bitfinex. So what we see here is Bitcoin has held the long-term channel here, or the 2017 channel. So I say that simply because the daily candle has closed. For long-term trends, I pretty much exclusively use the daily chart, and we see this huge wick here that was bought up. Look at this volume. This is what I've been talking about all the time. If we scroll out, we can see the buy volume has been this high back here in, is that September? Yep, back in that dip in September. And that's what I was saying. This is the buy volume that we want to see if we want to see a trend reversal. Now, is there a trend reversal? Not exactly too sure. On Twitter, I called it out. I'm like, all right, guys, I'm saying that this is the bottom. Take that with a grain of salt. I'm not exactly sure, but we will see. If the or actually, what didn't, or what I didn't like, is that this bullish engulfing candle did not complete. So if we look, this candle right here, a bullish engulfing candle is pretty much where we have this nice long wick, price hit here, and buyers bought all the way back up. But I would have liked to see it close above this red candle here. So if that bullish engulfing candle closed above around 8,000, let's say 8,400, that would be a really bullish sign in my mind, because we've got the volume, we've held the long term, or the 2017 Bitcoin log channel, and a bullish engulfing candle. That's three big signs for the RSI on the daily has bottomed out. However, the bullish engulfing candle did not form, so we still have 3 out of the 4 indicators to signify a bottom. The only thing is, I don't know if we're just going to go up from here. That is very unlikely. I think what's going to happen is we had the bounce, because the bounce was overdue. For the past 2 or 3 days, we've seen, alts and Bitcoin, even Bitcoin was going down 20%, and everything was just oversold like crazy. And when there's that going on in the market, when everything is just super oversold, a bounce is right around the corner. But that bounce doesn't necessarily mean that it's the bottom for the coins, or that bounce is just going to then skyrocket back up. What is most likely going to happen is we're going to be testing some of these resistance levels, like this one here at 9,500, and kind of just bouncing around here for the next couple weeks. Hopefully, we stay in this channel, but the possibility of 5K or back to 6K is definitely still out there. I'm not, you know, keeping that out of my mind. I've still got some pretty low bids for Bitcoin that didn't fill. I got in at this dip a little bit. I didn't deploy as much capital as I probably should have. If I was thinking this was the low, because 6,000 for BTC is super, super cheap. But, I kind of just, went slow, and I was like, you know what? Not going to just confirm this as the bottom, and I'm going to, hold out on deploying too much capital. So, you know, I don't think this is the bottom. I think this was a bounce that was needed because everything was being oversold, but we're not going to go straight up. I think we're just going to kind of hang around these levels. Hopefully, we can keep in this channel. Bitcoin can just kind of trade sideways within this 2017 channel, and that would be really, really good. And kind of pretty much build a base for Bitcoin around these levels. But, depending on the news, depending on what comes out, we'll see how that holds. But really good volume here. This is definitely something we wanted to see because, especially if we go to the 4-hour chart, as I was saying in the previous video on Monday, a lot of this sell volume, it was almost nothing, So it's just that there aren't enough people in the market right now buying or selling. So we need some kind of catalyst to get people back in, get the optimism back into Bitcoin, back into crypto like we were seeing in November. So yeah, maybe for February we're gonna kind of have a cool down for Bitcoin and alts. They'll be trading sideways for some time before we see any significant move to the upside or downside. So I would say if you weren't able to get in on this low here, on this nice little dip into the 6K, just hold it out. Don't get freaked out that you missed the bottom, because as I said, this was a bounce that was needed because all of the indicators showed that pretty much every single coin was oversold to the bottom. We were about like 30 or 40% below the 10 EMA. It's just all the indicators were leaning towards a bounce coming, and I think that's what this is. But yeah, take it slow. Don't FUD. Don't think you're missing out on another huge run for Bitcoin. I think we are still in a bear market right now, and just take things really slow. Don't do it. Don't make any crazy buys because you think you're missing out on something. So yeah, moving on briefly, Dow Jones Industrial Average, as well as the S&P 500, have had a nice little rebound. So that's the Dow Jones, and if we look at the S&P real quick, same thing. Nice little rebound, pretty much at the same time of the crypto market. Now, I'm not saying this is a correlation or anything. It's just a nice data point to consider since, in the last video, I was talking about how we don't know how the crypto market is going to react to a bear market in the stock market. So seeing these things bounce on the same day, definitely something to keep in mind. Doesn't mean anything in terms of a trend or just a data point to keep in mind, when making your decisions. So as I always say, keep a look at the stock market. just briefly look at the headlines. You don't need to be, doing any TA on this or anything. Just, see if you can find any kind of trends, related between the two. I think, as I said, the stock market is going to be a pretty big macro force on the crypto market. So, to the final piece of news and the biggest piece of news, the virtual currency hearing. So, I watched the whole thing yesterday at 10, and the video is archived on the Senate website. I'll obviously leave the link to this in the description. So, what do I think of this? I think that the meeting was overall, it was pretty bullish for crypto. However, there was talk of a good amount of regulation. Um, and that regulation was mostly directed to ICOs and scams, token scams. And I think that was the main takeaway from the conference, is that the CFTC and the SEC want to protect the people, right? They don't want people to get scammed. I mean, that's the whole part. That's the whole reason why we have an SEC and their, regulation over the stock market. And they're looking at things like BitConnect and, you know, they mentioned an ICO. Chairman John Carlo mentioned an ICO that they pretty much cracked down on. But basically, these ICOs that are, promising false returns, they're doing false marketing. They want to stop that and, kind of put reins over these ICOs, because what was his name? Clayton, yes, the SEC chairman. He made it really, really apparent and just laid down the law, saying that ICOs are securities and they have to comply with securities laws. However, there hasn't been a single ICO that has registered with the SEC so far. It was quite interesting, the back and forth between Senator Warren and Chairman Clayton, where she's basically asking like if any ICOs have registered, any like previous ICOs have registered, and he's like they have not. Have any ICOs in 2018 registered, and he's like they have not. So pretty much the law is clear that ICOs need to register with the SEC since they need to comply with securities laws. However, they're just not following the law. So that was a pretty big takeaway. And I also kind of got the notion that, especially Chairman Clayton wants to treat all crypto as a security, all tokens as a security. And kind of going off that, he discussed how the SEC has really no regulation over cryptocurrency exchanges, and they were definitely looking at what they could do about that. So how that all ties together is that, for the government, the SEC specifically, kind of giving exchanges the green light to operate is going to definitely incentivize institutional money to come in, because there's going to be some sort of regulatory framework that is going to give investors, especially big investors, some sense of security in putting their money in these exchanges, right? Because as we all know, one of the big messages all over crypto Twitter or YouTube is just don't leave your money on exchanges because they can be vulnerable to hacks. And that was also brought up in the meeting, how Mt. Gox and most recently that hack in Korea that stole like 400 million NEM, right? What the SEC could do about it, right? And that was when Chairman Clayton said they really have no jurisdiction over these cryptocurrency exchanges. But implementing more regulation on exchanges is also going to um, impact what coins are listed, right? Because if crypto and tokens are going to be treated as a security, those tokens that don't comply with securities laws are going to be delisted, right? And that's going to reduce liquidity for those tokens, but it's also at the same time going to be giving rise to decentralized exchanges, which I did a video, or I believe I touched on that on like 2 videos ago, and kind of how decentralized exchanges are going to be, at least I think, going to be one of the biggest winners um, in terms of tokens. That those tokens for the decentralized exchanges are going to be one of the biggest winners in the coming years. But overall, like, I think it's more that they want to clamp down, or clamp down on the ICO scams and the token scams, because they don't want people losing their money, right? And what was actually interesting is that Senator Kennedy asked Chairman John Carlo, um, he's the chairman of the CFTC, how stocks and such have disclosures for people to read, but obviously nobody really reads them. Even Chairman John Carlo himself said that when he invested in stocks and whatnot, he did not read the disclosures. And one of the big points that Senator Kennedy made was that what's the point of um, providing all of these resources to people? So Chairman John Carlo was saying how he was trying to get the public more educated about crypto technology, Bitcoin, blockchain, but also the risks involved with investing in these exchanges, and kind of like the procedures you have to do. Because obviously, for someone that's new, they're not going to know, stuff like, hey, you shouldn't keep your crypto on an exchange, um, how public and private keys work, how to move your crypto from an exchange to your wallet, and all of these things like that. And Senator Kennedy was like, if people don't read disclosures for stocks, what, like, they're not going to read anything related to crypto. So how are you going to get people informed so that they don't lose their money, right? Because one of the biggest things was those ICOs that are scams, and people are throwing money at any ICO, and that ICO can easily just run away with people's money. And if people aren't going to be reading, the precautions they have to take before investing in ICOs and in the crypto market in general, you know, what what benefit is all the information that Chairman John Carlo wants to put out? And I think that's actually a really big point, because that's where YouTube channels and Twitter, well, Twitter is a little bit controversial because there's a lot of shit posting and whatnot that goes on Twitter, and a lot of coin shilling. But if you could find, those people, those channels, even Twitter accounts that really help new new people in the cryptocurrency space, I think that's going to be the biggest thing, right? All of us who are in the market right now and understand how everything works should definitely put out resources for new people. And even when we're just talking to others and getting them, friends and family, and getting them to join in on crypto and buy in on crypto, we should always be helping them walk through, or helping them and walking them through how to do everything, right? And kind of the precautions and procedures you have to take um, in order to be in this market and survive in this market and not lose money in this market. If you saw Bitcoin going down 20%, no, don't sell. That's the worst thing you can do. Um, so I think with what Senator Kennedy said, a lot of YouTube channels and stuff, there's a ton of resources on YouTube, from all of these crypto content creators. And I myself need to work on getting some stuff out for the new people in the cryptocurrency space. But it's definitely something very important to consider, because since the SEC can't really regulate too much in the crypto market, people need to do that themselves, right? One of the big sayings in crypto is that you are your own bank and you're controlling your funds, you're controlling your private keys. So you need to know what to do when investing in this market. And us meaning the people who are currently in the market should give every resource that we can to help the new people come in and understand what they have to do. Um, so I think that's definitely a really important takeaway from this. Um, and overall, I think Chairman Giancarlo was a little bit more optimistic about crypto than Chairman Clayton, because I noted actually, some of the key phrases that he was saying. One of them was a quote, "do no harm" approach to crypto, and another one was that we owe it to this generation to respect their enthusiasm about virtual currency. Obviously, speaking towards millennials. And what was interesting about Chairman Giancarlo was that he gave a really short anecdote about how his kids were never invested in the stock market, but when they learned about Bitcoin, they were pretty much ecstatic about it and wanted to learn more, wanted to invest, and are invested currently in Bitcoin. And it was actually funny because he brought up the term hodl. And that has been pretty much circulating around Twitter as a meme. But getting back to the actual point, it shows that Chairman Giancarlo especially is not in a vacuum in terms of what crypto is and what benefits it provides, um, because a lot of us think that regulators do live in some kind of vacuum, which I for the most part, I think all of the senators that were questioning the chairman, I did get the impression of that they just don't know enough about this new technology, this new currency, to adequately understand it, right? And Chairman Giancarlo is kind of, in a way, refreshing in that he's showing that he doesn't live in that vacuum. He knows um, about cryptocurrency. He has kids that are talking to him about cryptocurrency, and I think that really gave some insight into how potential regulation is going to be formed, because there was really no regulation that came out of this meeting. There's the SEC and the CFTC are still deciding that, but with that short anecdote from Giancarlo, I think it really gives everyone in the crypto community a peace of mind of where regulation is going. You know, they want to let blockchain technology flourish, but at the same time, crack down on the scams, people promising false returns, um, and the Ponzi schemes and whatnot. Anyone trying to defraud people of money, that's what they're going to go after. But the technology itself, the tokens that are um, benefiting or disrupting some kind of industry, they want to let that grow. So I definitely think that anecdote was overlooked, but it really does give us some good insight into how regulation is going to be formed um, on crypto. So yeah. Oh, and one thing that they didn't discuss at all was taxes. Um, well, that's probably the IRS. So taxes are still up in the air for this. There's most definitely going to be some kind of hearing on taxes and update on what the tax laws are. So that's something to definitely keep your eye out on. But Um, other than that, I think it was good. You know, overall, I think as I said, it was bullish, and a lot of people or the sentiment, on Twitter and on the chat groups is pretty bullish as well. So we'll see where we go from here. Other than that, just keep watching Bitcoin. Don't chase this little run up we're having. I think we're going to be trading sideways for some time. And yeah, if you haven't already, click that subscribe button, click the like button. I am going to be churning out content, these podcasts, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And, putting out some other type of videos on other days that I can have some time to record. So, yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you on Friday.